There. It's Freda. Oh, there we go. And I'm looking for the record button. There it is. Today, I'm going to go into a bit more detail about the benefit of planning because it sounds like such an easy thing to do, such a menial thing to do, and people do it already. But what we do is we take on the negative tasks first and get them over with. And that's what we're taught to do. You can't have your pudding until you eat your vegetables, right? You get the drudgy thing out of the way, and then you can go outside and play or do whatever you want to do. And that works to a certain extent, but we tend to then not have any pleasure. And we are prehistoric beings. We are physiologically and mentally still living in prehistoric times, right? Now, our daily tasks that we have in the current time are not remotely like what we used to experience in the past, right? We do not have enough physical movement. We have adrenaline pumping all of the time from danger, right? From Facebook and Twitter and that person walking on the other side of the street. Whereas in the past, when someone had a panic attack or they experienced anxiety or danger, there was really a danger. And we would run away, right? And we would escape or we'd die. And it was finished. All of that adrenaline was pumped out of our body. Well, nowadays, it isn't like that. We have constant little spikes of anticipation of danger, right? Or annoyances, or this, or that. But yet, there's nothing to bring us back down, right? So if you think of anxiety as a scale of arousal, which is what it is, right? So you go along your day and little things happen and it goes up and down, up and down, up and down. And then something happens, your phobia crosses your path. And suddenly it spikes and then we run away. So it drops. And then we go on about our day, right? It might be a little bit higher than it was, right? But that's the way it works. And we always ran away, or we avoid something, or we find some other strategy to deal with it. What happens with anxiety and with a phobia is if you go along your day and it spikes, this peak can only last for 20 to 30 minutes, sometimes 15 to 20 minutes, and then it will naturally go back down, right? But normally we don't wait it through. So when a person has anxiety or phobia, you stay at that peak until it starts going down substantially, right? And that's how you overcome a phobia. Well, the problem is that we don't often come across our phobias, right? We don't often come across anything new in our lives sometimes. So we start to just go on autopilot and always do the same things, the same way, the same time, which is wonderful if you are doing things that already contribute to your mental health. If you don't, then without realizing it, you go into a downward spiral of increased anxiety, increased depression. Usually they go hand in hand because you can't be depressed and not worry about it. And if you're constantly worried about something, you're probably going to be depressed. So they do go hand in hand. So what planning is about doing things that will increase your mental health and keep you resilient. Again, using the analogy of the trees, right? Is, you know, If it's a healthy tree, the wind will come and it'll blow it over, and it might blow a couple branches off, but it'll bend it all the way down and it'll bounce back up when the storm is over. If it's brittle, then the tree will simply break when the wind blows. And that's what we want to do. We want to increase our flexibility and resilience whenever things happen that we don't expect. So, again, it's the life vest technique, right? We're floating in our life vest. Sometimes the water gets to here and we don't notice it, and we flail around and say, oh my God, what do I do now? Right? Instead, we want to keep it blown up to where our neck and shoulders are out of the water. Usually, if you find that you're in a downward spiral, there are three things that you tend to do, or that is recommended to do. First is increase your exercise by 30 minutes a day. If you're not exercising at all, that means 30 minutes a day. If you are taking a gentle walk, then increase it 30 minutes a day. Secondly, increase your social engagements to 3 times a week, because people who are suffering with their mental health tend to isolate. And that's one of the flaws or advantages, depending on which side you're looking at it, of depression, because depression encourages you to isolate, and it's also socially acceptable to isolate if you're depressed. So if you're supposed to meet a friend and you say, oh, I don't really feel like it, they'll pat you on the shoulder and they'll say, oh, that's all right. Why don't you just have girls' night in and watch films or something, right? Just rest and take care of yourself. So it actually feeds itself that way, and it's allowable to do it. So what we do is increase your social engagements to 3 times a week. Actually make plans, make commitments, right? That way you cannot back out of it. Excuse me, right? The third thing is increase your planning. And usually you take out planning that you've done before and you look to see what's worked for you. What did you do? How did you schedule things? What did you leave out? What did you include? If you haven't done planning before, then we want to start a plan that has one special thing in it every day that you do. It doesn't have to be big. It could be however small, but it's something for you that is rejuvenating. So from my client base, right, they have wonderful ideas. One client would have a special tea that she would drink in the evening sitting on her bed watching the sun go down behind the trees. Another client would buy an expensive home interior magazine, and that was her reward. And then her pleasure time was reading the articles in it each day as she had her coffee. Another client, she's almost my favorite client. She was my very first client. Loved to ice skate, and she lived across from an ice skating rink. And every day on her way home from work, she would go ice skating. And her reward for doing her pleasure time every day was to take ice skating lessons at the weekend. And she actually got to the point she was going to have to hire a professional coach, right? I mean, I'd love to see her ice skate. She must be absolutely epic, right? So the point of it is you can do anything, however big, however small, right? Mindful coloring is good. Generally, it's kind of odd, this, right? Generally, things that are pleasurable for ourselves, we consider to be a complete waste of time, right? So sitting and reading your magazine article with your coffee could be considered a waste of time. Mindful coloring, waste of time. Watching a specified program on television, waste of time, right? So you have to get over that hump of feeling selfish, self-indulgent, taking advantage of a situation, because it's not like that at all. What you are doing is blowing up your life vest. And really keep that concept in mind as you are doing things, right? So basically, each day you have a pleasure activity. Each week you have a reward for that activity. Pleasure activity doesn't usually include television. It does if it is a specific program that you leave the television off before and turn the television off after, right? Then it it can be. Um, Soaps and things, really, they aren't, you would do that anyway. You would watch those anyway. So if you find it difficult to come up with a pleasure activity, there is a list in the CCC profile, right? And some of them, there's a mastery list and a pleasure list, and they're all jumbled up really together. I mean, jogging to me would be mastery and not pleasure, right? So you just have to look, and it's designed to help you come up with your own ideas. So reward is just something a little bit bigger from than what you've been doing during the week as a reward for doing all of your pleasure time. It doesn't need to be connected to your pleasure time in any way. So it could be going out for a meal. It could be buying a little treat. It could be really anything. A general help sometimes, they say, is to think of things that you used to love to do and you don't do any longer. Something that you've always wanted to do for your entire life but never have. Or something just that you're interested in, right? But it should be something that really gives you that boost of dopamine, those pleasure chemicals, for that amount of time. Okay. Also, pleasure time is a useful thing. You can do it right before you do something challenging. I have someone visiting. All right, I shall admit her. Hello.